Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Dailies on Echo Television, where we look at the happenings on the front page of the paper. And as well, we invite you to tune in by dropping your comment, drop your views regarding any of the events on the papers that are quite of interest to you. I am Sela Elisha Dashom. I will be doing this program alongside Rachel Tanzi. Good morning.
Morning, Seven.
All right, morning. We shall be running through the papers, starting with Daily Independent newspaper.
The big story on the paper, Edo Guba. PDP asks supporters to activate mechanism to defend vote. Go to polling units with enough food, water, medication, mats, spare clothes, smartphones, and other essential items. Still on the paper, Edo Guba, Obi rallies support for APATA, tax security agencies, INEC on credible poll. Military personnel who compromises will face the consequences, an assurance from the CDS. AFCC operatives lay siege to Abuja Kogi government lodge to arrest former Governor Bello after visiting commission's office. Maiduguri flood, over 150,000 children in dire need of aid. Federal government test runs control system for enhanced national power grid. ICRC to audit all PPP projects, enforce statutory insurance of assets. Nigeria gunning to lead hub of $7.7 trillion global halal market. Coming from the federal government, you can find details on page 7. Court decides Ganduje's fate as APC National Chairman September 23rd. FCT primary school teachers embark on indefinite strike. Nigeria's rating soars after compliance with Cape Town Convention. The writer says consider safe for aircraft leasing. You can start with the details on the front page. Sub-regional countries brainstorm on workers' interest in the AFCT. You can find details on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Independent newspaper.
On this day newspaper, CBN reintroduces controversial cybersecurity levy, slashes tax to 0.005% from 0.5% on all electronic transactions. You can do well to read more detail regarding that. Global Aviation Body scores Nigeria high over efforts to comply with Cape Town Convention, comments Kiyamo. Detail found on page 10. Party constitution, not governor, remove Abure. Labour Party leadership, says Peter Obi. Says party warned Nigerians about APC. Ex-chair explained why INEC is against him. You can do well to read more detail of that. And we are having the Chief of Defense Staff to Obaseki. We have Tinubu's mandate to ensure a free and fair poll in Edo State. The writer following that story here says Governor begs General to talk to IGP on fairness. And then coming from the PDP, we are ready for election, alleges APC bringing talks from Imo and Kogi State. Obi rallies support for APATA tax security agency, INEC on credible polls. Police refute alleged clampdown on PDP. And then we have citing alleged police compromise. Hirua asks NSA to take over the security. Do well to read more detail of that. We have the picture story where we can see mission to ensure a free and fair poll, where we can see the Chief of Defense Staff together with the Governor of Edo State. You can do well to get the paper in more detail of all the stories that are quite of interest to you.
On Daily News Hub, the big story, surrender controversy. Yahaya Bello, EFCC in hide and seek. I voluntarily surrendered at Commission's headquarters, the ex-governor is claiming. AFCC counter says Bello not in our custody. He remains wanted. There's subsisting warrant for his arrest. I visited AFCC headquarters, not interrogated, asked to leave. Ex-Kogi governor is still insisting. Still on the paper, Guba poll, don't import talks into Edo, group wants APC. On hardship, ex-Sokoto governor Bafarawa donates 1 billion naira to atone for tenure shortcomings. 2024 ACE Awards, OGD, GNN, GNI, Ogun CP, Farouk Oruba, Funke, Bucknor, Sifax Group's boss, Daily News Hub publishers, Arise TV, Rufai Oseni, others named recipients, gets honor in Lagos on Sunday. On flood, over 150,000 Meduguri children in dire need of aid. A report from the SCI Nigeria. Still on Borno flood, manifest your leadership, courageous qualities, Obasanjo charges Zulum. We have Oneye Khan flays Tinubu's reform, says middle class becoming poor. On monkeypox, Gavi set to secure 500,000 vaccine doses for Africa. Elon Musk's brain chip to help blind people see gets approval. Still on the paper, PDP governors NWC moved to sack Wike's loyalist Damagun as chairman. The last story on the paper, why I love dancing. If you want to know why Governor Adeleke loved dancing, get the Daily News Hub newspaper. And we have a picture where we can see former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello purportedly arriving at the EFCC headquarters in Abuja in company with his successor, Governor Usman Ododo. This happened yesterday, and that's all the news on Daily News Hub.
On the Metrics newspaper, pension fund assets surged to 20.79 trillion in July, says PenCom. Data found on page 3. As well, we have Edu Decide INEC Security Agency on red alert, with the writer saying fears of rigging looms large as APC files complaint against INEC officials. Army to oversee border areas, Navy waterways. And then we have, this is coming from DIG Frank Mba reveals the fact that the Army will oversee the border areas, Navy and waterways. As well, still on metrics, we have Labour Party crisis. Abure fires back, reveals how Obi OT betrayed him. And we have 70,000 naira minimum wage. Private employers risks jail for non-compliance. 70,000 naira minimum wage. Private employers risks jail for non-compliance. You can read that on page 3. The big story regarding the 80 billion naira raft saga, where we have Yahya Bello EFCC conundrum continues. Details of how EFCC officials were prevented from arresting Bello at Kogi Governor's Lodge emerged. Whole EFCC responsible if anything happens to Bello, media team cries out. How Odudu abandoned official duty to escort Bello to EFCC office. He remains wanted, EFCC rules, data found on page 2. And I was about saying the same thing while we having the governor accompanying. I mean, we tend to see more like, will I say he's actually being loyal. I think that's the word for me. Loyalty coming from the present governor of the state. And we know there's quite a number of things happening in Kogi State. Right now, I'm expecting him to be having, committees regarding the opening of the Cameroon Dam. What are we going to do about the bad roads and many other things? Rather, we're seeing him trying to accompany Yahya Bello. You just can't help but wonder. We will record earlier, there was a time, remember the first time where the EFCC were trying to arrest him, where they actually tried to surround the house. It was still the same governor that helped him escape. And so you just can't help but wonder what really is happening. Why are we beginning to have leaders forgetting their primary responsibility and concentrating and doing other things that are not expected? I hope that Kogi people are watching all of this thing that is happening, and I hope that they will demand an explanation from their governor why he's abandoning his primary responsibility and they're focusing on another thing that has nothing to do with development in the state.
Sela, it's truly embarrassing seeing what our leaders prioritize, because either way, it shows where your mind is as a leader. And it is quite embarrassing on a lot of levels, because we are looking at a graft case here. This is an issue of corruption, fraud, money embezzlement, and all of that. Regardless of your loyalty to this person, I don't think until he is proven innocent, he is still a guilty man. The fact is that he's even running. He's not availing himself. He is a fugitive. He's out there. He's at large. Well, not a fugitive because he's not yet convicted. So, but either way, in the eyes of EFCC, right now, he is a criminal until otherwise, until they carry their investigation, until everything is being cleared out. You as a governor, you are not even supposed to be seen close to it, because this has now become a matter of the federal government. This is up against the EFCC. This is not some crime unit in your state and all of that. So you need to you're not even supposed to be
Mm.
there. You are not supposed to appear with him. You're supposed to distance yourself. This is not the appearance that as the president governor of a state you're supposed to be, because now it gives a notion if that is the kind of governor you would eventually be. If you are supporting a man that is going under investigation concerning graft, concerning embezzling state-owned funds for personal reasons and gain, and it shows
Mm.
indirectly or even directly, if you can put it like that perhaps you support such attitude, you support such actions from leaders. So it shouldn't be in the first place. You're not supposed to be there. You can support him from the background, you can support him
Exactly.
behind the scenes, you can support him somehow, but not openly in
Mm.
such a way. And it shows that your priority, because when you could be facing other things, just as you said, Selem, Kogi is about risking flood, whether we like it or not, be it from the rainfall or from the opening of the Cameroon Dam. Either way, you are supposed to be in a where you are strategizing the way forward and what are the projects you plan to bring to
Mm.
Kogi
True.
State.
True.
So far, so good. We've not heard anything from you as a governor. We are hoping to know what are the steps you plan to take,
Mm.
not, you know, accompany your ex to go and visit a EFCC
Honestly, well,
office.
we'll keep our fingers crossed regarding that. Student Metrics newspaper, no pressure on Igbo soldiers to quit Nigerian army. IPOP clarifies, you can read detail on page 3. Federal government launches investigation into the earth tremor in Abuja, where we're seeing a number of pictures showing how this pressure and shake have actually affected some of the roads there in Abuja. So you do well to read more detail of that on page 10. AGF says politicians demarketing Nigeria unworthy of leadership. The AGF is saying that politicians demarketing Nigeria unworthy of leadership. You can do well to read detail of that in the paper. Downside of the paper, we have General Abdulsalami Abubakar laments the rising hunger, economic hardship in Nigeria. And we recall yesterday he was calling on the president to do something regarding that. We have a picture story where we can see fostering collaboration with MDAs for economic growth, where we're seeing the Vice President Kashim Shettima in a warm handshake with Wadi Edu, the Minister of Finance, and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy. And then we have Atiku Bagudu, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, at the third meeting of the National Council on Privatization held on Wednesday at the Presidential Villa Abuja. And that's all in Metrics newspaper.
On First News newspaper, what we warned Nigerians, failure of APC, dangers of APC is happening, Dati Papa Ahmed is saying. Indumeli's Borno South delegation in 200 million naira donation to Meduguri flood victims. What a shame, what a betrayal, LP faction accuses Obi and OT amid INEC dispute. Federal government issues flood warnings as Cameroon set to open Lagdo Dam. Nigeria's aviation sector soars, global compliance rating hits new height. Presidency debunks Tinubu's asking Cardoso to resign claims. And on hardship, Makinde delays new tax law to avoid burdening Oyo residents. Drama unfolds, Yahaya Bello's voluntary visit to EFCC sparks clash over his wanted status. Reject APC, it has plunged Nigeria into abyss of suffering, Atiku urges Edo voters. We have a picture where we can see Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State warmly welcomes the governing council of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, led by President Professor Pius Deji, PhD FC, during a courtesy visit to Lagos House in Ikeja. And that's all the news on First News newspaper.
Right on the Daily Times newspaper, Nigeria to become Africa's aviation hub, coming from Kiamu Dita found on page 6. PDP to Tinubu, you have responsibility to ensure Edo governorship poll is free, fair and credible. The writer says vows to resist attempt by APC to rig the poll, and then cancels the AGP over allowing APC pitch police against Nigerians, cancels the IGP not to allow APC pitch police against Nigerians. CDS in Edo promises secure environment for the Saturday's poll. You can do well to read more detail of that on page 2. We have NIN key to access federal government social services, saying NIMSI. Data found on page 6. Yahya Bello not in EFCC custody, says the anti-graft agency spokesperson. More data found on page 4. Federal government urges downstream states to activate flood control measures. And this is where we're saying the federal government has called on the downstream states of the Lado Dam in Cameroon to activate flood control measures to avoid loss of lives and properties. Chief Uche, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, gave the advice in Abuja on Wednesday at a news conference on Earth Timor in FCT flood risks in some states of the Federation. The minister recalled the opening of the Cameroonian Lado Dam, saying that the overflowing of the dam affected about 137 hectares of land between July 1st and 31st. So you do well to read more detail of some of the states that will be affected, the likes of Kogi, Edo, Delta, and many other states. Downside, we have the FRS to introduce e-invoicing to enhance Nigeria's tax system. And the picture story is where we can see the Independent National Electoral Commission sensitive materials arrived Benin Airport yesterday ahead of the Edo State governorship election slated for Saturday. And that's all in the Daily Times newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, those who begged us for tickets now fighting us, a statement from Abuja. Tremor sends fair panic to Abuja residents. U.S. agency OK's brain aid chip to restore vision. Governor sends diverted palliatives to EFCC and ICPC. The big story on the paper, PDP governors plead over bid to sack party chair Damogun. His stay no longer tenable, says Bala, and Makinde is saying, I'm fully with him. Still on the paper, 80.2 billion naira probe Yahaya Bello EFCC in hide and seek. Ex-governor shows up at agency's office with Odudo 153 days after operatives surround governor's lodge. Makinde to deliver 41 billion naira Ibadan airport upgrade next year. Steer clear of Edo election, CDS warn troublemakers. Military has presidential mandate to ensure free poll. Still on the paper, Nigeria to become leading hub in $7.7 trillion halal global market, says Shetima. And that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper concerning inflation, low patronage hits online stores, malls amid 200% spike in prices, where we're seeing that the price of goods rose as much as 200% in the last 1 year as inflation hit 32.15%. Now we're seeing that the minimum monthly cost of a healthy meal for an adult family of 4% up by over 35% from 122,765 in January to 184,971 by June. So this is the statistics given for the first half of the year regarding how much it would take a family to actually spend. Do well to read more details regarding that. Kogi poll sack Randy lecturer as OAUTH removes office beat. Do well to read more detail of that on page 2. Over 21,000 apply for 7,000 KWA SIEC ACOG jobs. That's regarding the local government elections that will be taking place. Do well to read that on page 30. PDP crisis, Makinde backs Mbato Damakum as the governor. Then we have the National Working Committee plan to sack him. Do well to read that as well. Bello remains wanted. EFCC insists lay siege to Kogi government lodge. Donation for Borno flood victims hit 11 billion naira. Do well to read more detail of that in the paper. For scarcity, tanker drivers cause traffic chaos on Oshodi Apapa Expressway. Zulum warn emirs against illegal mining insurgency risks. And we have CSO worry over Edo Guber election, condemn INEC's refusal to redeploy REC. Later found on page 29. We have a picture story where we can see Makinde approves 41 billion naira for airport upgrade, differs prospective tax implementation. You can read that on page 7, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, the big story in Edo, INEC deploys 5,000 BVA, 18,000 ad hoc workers. APC LP tackle PDP over Baseki's 1 billion naira grant to market women. NAF aircraft arrive Edo with sensitive materials. Tinubu may merge MDA scrap humanitarian ministry. PDP NWC members plot Damagun's removal. On Cameroon Dam, states plan emergency shelter. AFCC besieges Kogi Governor Lodge in finding of Yahaya Bello. You can find details on page 12. World Bank to grant Nigeria $1.7 billion loan, a report. Lagos state government records 300 domestic violence cases monthly. Private employers paying below 70,000 naira weeks jail. Assurance from the federal government concerning implementing minimum wage. You can find details on page 7, and that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
You know, Richard, each time I see anything that has to do regarding domestic violence, very hard for me to just, not talk about it.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that in Lagos alone, they have recorded about 300 domestic violence cases monthly.
Yeah.
So let's just take that first half for the year, from January to June, and we're going to do like 300 times 6. And then you could realize the number that we're going to be realized, not to even start from June down to September now. And this is just in Lagos State, and then let's not even go wider to look at how many cases of domestic violence we have in Nigeria. And this is something that is a secret killer. It's more like it's quiet, and then yeah, it comes in once in a while, but it's not getting the expected attention that it should get. You need to go to all of these social I think civil service departments, where you get to see cases regarding all of this domestic violence and all of that. You just cannot help but weep when you see some of these cases, and it's really really sad. And I hope that we have more bodies rallying around the, because most of the people who take we know that government do it, but then most of the burden is on most of these non-governmental organizations. So I hope we have more bodies that rally around. We need to do something about this. I keep saying each time we see cases like this, it goes down to people's mindset, mental health, and all of that. So it's really a story that worries me a lot each time I see cases regarding domestic violence. But I hope that we have a government that will give the needed attention it should give to this case at all times.
So when it comes to domestic violence, I think we're in a phase right now where it's increasing, at the same time it's becoming normal. There was once a time it wasn't much, but then people were silent about it because it's not heard of, you might not be heard, and you won't get the justice, or it's embarrassing, and people would rather keep it to themselves. But now it's growing, and then at the same time we're starting to normalize it. So people are in the phase of, I'm minding my business, or you've not seen worse, or worse has happened to this person, and all of that. And it's compounding to the issue, because we can never normalize wrong things, even if it is rampant, even if everybody is doing it. We've had the number where Benue State was highest in child trafficking. We saw this some months back, and I said, if it's increasing, if this is thriving, it means people are accepting it. It means nobody is talking against it. We are starting to normalize it. And I believe to have this much number increase, people are not getting the help they're getting. People are not speaking out. Even when they speak out, people are beginning to normalize it. And we know the kind of words, if we are to, the kind of comfort we get is more of, be patient, it's going to pass, things will change, and all of that. And people keep waiting to see if that change will happen, keep having that patience until it gets worse, until it gets fatal, until somebody loses their life, and then we speak. But you see, the boss is always for a very short period of time. It dies down until we have another casualty, and then people talk about it. 300 is a huge number, meaning an average every day in Lagos State, at least we are looking at 5 people facing domestic violence every single day. That is high, and this is just the numbers in Lagos. We don't know what is happening in other states. So we are looking at hundreds of thousands of people going through domestic violence and abuses left, right, center in this country. Don't keep quiet. We've talked about that. Don't keep quiet. Never normalize it. It doesn't matter if you are going to end up being the bad guy in your community. Speak out when you see certain things, because we cannot accept domestic violence. We cannot accept domestic abuse. We cannot accept any form of abuse. It's one of the rot in our society that we cannot accept. If we can sit down and say, when it comes to drugs, there are cartels, there are people that are being governed by the government, and maybe say there's nothing you can do. I don't think when it comes to domestic violence, is that thing that you can sit down and say it is not your business. It's not far from you. You will get to it. Your child will be affected by it. You will be, the community will suffer. This is one thing that I don't think we should accept it. No matter how we begin to think it's normal, we should never normalize abuse or violence of any form.
I know both sex go through domestic violence,
Sure.
but especially for the women, you feel that, okay, why don't I endure this for the sake of
Yeah.
my children? But it will shock you to know that your children would prefer to come from a broken home than to actually
Yes,
stay in a home that is abuse.
of course.
But then we just like you said, we're making it to look like normal. You keep enduring, and then at the end of the day, your child may end up with just one parent. So which would you have preferred, to stay alive and take care of the same kids that you are staying in that abuse home for, or to actually leave the home? So I hope that we have a counseling regarding that, and then we have more awareness regarding this, for people to know that, you know what, you can actually break free from such
certain things,
abusive or whatever, you know, domestic violence or whatever form of violence or abuse you are going through in the home. Well, before we continue further with the paper review, I would love us to take a break just to let you go through the stories, through them, and then when we come back, we will continue the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zoom on Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying tuned. It's still the dailies, where we look at certain stories on the paper, we review them as well, and also make sure that you know, you get involved in the program by dropping your comment and your views on Facebook, because they are always welcome. We've been looking at a number of stories where we're saying that concerning the election in Edo, which is coming on Saturday, things are getting heated, as well as we're seeing the EFCC talking about the fact that Yahya Bello is still wanted by them. So he's not yet in their custody, according to them. So we have quite a number of stories, people also reacting, where we can see that the present governor of Kogi State tends to be seen in company of the former governor, and then tend to be neglecting his official duties. So we also see states preparing for the opening of the Lado Dam, as well, making sure that things don't get out of hand. So we have quite a number of stories on the paper, so please do well to drop your comment and your views. I still have Rachel with me. Thank you so much,
You're
Rachel.
welcome, Sarah.
All right, let's continue the paper review, looking at the Nigerian News Direct newspaper. TCN deploys $56 million technology to curb power grid collapses, detail found on page 10. How global Halan economy can boost Nigeria's GDP by $548 million. Sanu Nasu issued 3-week ultimatum to federal government, threatening indefinite strike over outstanding salaries. And I wonder, when would the federal government, you know, pay attention to this? On one hand, is ASU planning to go on strike if the federal government do not listen to them. And on the other hand, we're having the Senior Staff Association as well as the non-academic staff also giving the federal government 3 weeks. If not, they will go on indefinite strike. Already we're saying that for some of the tertiary institutions, The academic calendar for 2024-2025 is already out. So we hope the federal government does something so that it doesn't affect the academic calendar for the year. Do well to read more detail of that on page 2 of Nigerian News Direct. Oshu flies off 200 million naira microcredit loan to traders. You can read that on page 2. CBN face tough choices as inflation, weak growth dominate agenda for 297th MPC meeting. Do well to read that on page 8. The big story, alleged 80.2 billion naira money laundering. Again, EFCC operative storm Yahya Bello's home, with the rider as former Governor Eliu's operative holds EFCC responsible if anything happens to Bello, coming from his spokesperson. Bello still on our wanted list, coming from EFCC. I have nothing to hide or fear, coming from Yahya Bello. You can read all that on page 2. And we still have the speeches story on the front page of the paper. So you can do well to get the paper and read more detail of any of the story that's of interest to you.
On New Telegraph, FDI's Nigeria tipped to benefit as U.S. cuts interest rate by 0.5%. Federal government unveils advanced data tech for national grid. This is on Power. The big story on the paper, Borno flood, federal government deploys experts to test water and others, sends 100 drums of chlorine to disinfect water sources, 30,000 fires to sensitize public on best sanitation and hygiene practices. Mrs. Tinubu donates 500 million naira to victims. Bello visited EFCC headquarters. Officials didn't interrogate him. Statement from his media team. PDP Board of Trustees visits Governor Mohammed in Bauchi. Benue creates camps for IDPs as Cameroon releases Lago Dam water. NCP ratifies BPE's 2021-2022 audited financial reports. Abuja earth tremor not threat to environment, NGSA reassures. Tinubu Sanwo-Olu orders facilitate Lagos and Deputy Governor at 60. You can find details of this story on page 6. On terror financing, be wary of generosity, post-disaster compassion and others. GIABA warns, flags faith-based organizations, educational purposes donation, alert on other antics by terrorists. On Edo Guba, NAP begins airlift of poll materials. PDP alleges APC airing talks with fake police, military uniforms and weapons. SOB orders tax security agencies and INEC on credible poll. Study links belly fat to chronic body pain. You can find details on page 26, and that's all in news on New Telegraph.
All right, let's take a look at the Blueprint newspaper. On news, we have police commissioner's job not candy for crying child, coming from the Lagos CP. Jais win 2024 Global Most Promising Islamic Bank Award. Do well to read that on page 22. Jais win 2024 Global Most Promising Islamic Bank Award. On Sport Olympics, Home Ministry responsible for woeful outing, coming from Ikali. Detail found in the paper. 80.2 billion naira alleged fraud. Yahya Bello's appearance at EFCC steer controversy. As the writer saying, ex-Kogi governor not in our custody, still anti-graft agency. And we have NCP rectifies BPE's 2021-2022 audited financial report. Concerning the Borno flood, which is the big story, federal government moves against hazardous chemicals and disease outbreak. With the rider, NAFDAC sees harmful drugs. NEMA identifies monkeypox threat in IDP camp. 300,000 children and women crammed in 26 camps, coming from the SCI. Remi Tinubu donates 500 million naira. Dinko, Alco, and others are also donating 1.5 billion naira. Detail found in the paper. And we also have other smaller column with other stories on the front page of the paper, which I think you should do well to read more detail of, and that's all on Blueprint newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, Edo election, PDP APC in final showdown. Military has presidential mandate to ensure free and credible poll. NSCDC deploys 6,433 operatives. NAV commends airlift of election materials. Atiku will be tax electorate, INEC, and security agents. Federal government policy somersaults responsible for petrol price war between Dangote and NPCL, a statement from the NLC president. UI students step up crowdfunding to avoid dropping out as authorities insist payment portal closes tomorrow. Why CBN cannot accept securitized debt as form of repayment of ways and means, the CFC advisory saying. NAFDAC evacuates flood-damaged drugs from Borno market. The big story on the paper drama as EFCC, Yahaya Bello engaged in game of wits. Ex-governor honored commission summons left without being interrogated. Statement from his media aide. He is not in our custody. He remains a wanted man. FCC saying. You can find details of this story on page 11. Police arrest 3 suspected Yoruba Nation agitators in Osun. SSANU, NASU issued 3-week ultimatum threatening indefinite strike over unpaid 4-month salaries. Earth tremor in FCT, federal government constitutes probe committee. Amid boycott threat, blame game, Kwara Sokoto orders ready for Saturday's local government poll. We are 100% in support of Damogun, PDP, NWC, Makinde is saying. Earmarks 41 billion naira for Ibadan airport upgrade, sets 1-year completion timeline, suspends implementation of presumptive tax law. Adeleke Damogun Buhari Adebutu orders witness event, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Let's take a look at the Business Day newspaper, where we have petrol price hike put MPC in rate cut dilemma, where we have the Central Bank of Nigeria Monitoring Policy Committee may face a tricky decision regarding whether to hold or to raise the benchmark regarding the recent petrol price hike. With inflation being there, the second straight time where we're seeing that concerning the interest rate of about 22.4% in August of 2024. And we're seeing that analysts are projecting that the committee might consider cutting the rate to stimulate economic activity. So you can do well to start reading what will be the body language for CBN regarding that, and continue on page 31. Regulatory clampdown fails to drown crypto excitement when Nigeria's second on the top 20 global crypto adoption list. Agri-export leads silent shift in Nigerian's economy. Agri-export leads silent shift in the Nigerian economy, where we're seeing for decades Nigerian economy has been closely tied to the fluctuation of global oil market. Since the discovery of oil in the 90s, it has been the main source of revenue and dominant exporter. And however, we're seeing that the world is beginning to shift. This energy and oil price becoming increasingly volatile, especially as Nigeria is trying to shift grounds as well. So you can look more detailed into that story. UBA Americans' 40-year journey strengthens Africa's and U.S. ties. UBA Americans' 40-year journey strengthens Africa and U.S. ties. You can do well to read more detail of that. We have a picture story on the front page regarding Access Bank. You can do well to grab the paper and read more detail of the story that is of interest to you.
On Punch Sport Extra, government officials, agents, academy honors hijack under-20 screening. Toothless City run Intel roadblock. Getafe set high Uche transfer fee. Aina set for Forest contract extension. We have Ugbavoin lacks grace. Taribo is saying. Kane overtakes Rooney in Europe's scoring record. The boys want of pressure facing Joshua. Ibrahimovic silent on Osimhen's failed Milan move. Details of this story can be found on page 7. On 115 charges, City face Haaland transfer threat. The big story on the paper, Bergamo battle, Lukman eyes Gunners cap in UCL opener, which will be happening today. NYG Delta celebrates victory ahead of closing ceremony. Lagos sweeps National Youth Games boxing gold medals. Michael Jordan's mansion sells for $14.9 million. You can find details on page 2, and that's all the news on Punch Sports Extra.
Well, that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel, for doing
You're
this
welcome,
with me.
Celine.
As well, thank you to our viewers and supporters and to every other person that made the program a success. We look forward again to the tomorrow. To have a great day ahead.